everybody. Welcome to the Cosmic Dispatch, a show about bodies, celestial and earthbound, time, experience, and the relationship between all of them. I'm your host, Cory Nakasue, is how you pronounce my name, if you were wondering. No hard feelings, Peter. Um, Hello, friends. I hope you are all well and good on this spring afternoon, planting your seeds, which is what's going on at my house, and tending to your allergies, which is also what's going on at my house. Or maybe you're doing some cleaning and purging. Um, and happy Easter to all who celebrate. And for those of you that don't, happy resurrections. The Christ story isn't the only story of resurrection out there. For those of you looking for an alternative, there's the Egyptian myth of Isis and Osiris, which is really good. Very elaborate and involved if you like a lot of drama. Um, and then I'm having a kind of resurrection story myself. I've been very ill for the past few weeks, and I'm just now feeling human again. And it's like a rebirth, which is a very Aries thing. I'm sure you've all experienced this kind of thing in some form or another. It's like when we get close to death or to an end and then come out the other side, there's this feeling of ecstasy and a deeper appreciation of just plain old life itself. And I'm not saying I was, you know, in any way close to death, even though in moments I felt like it, but my vitality was definitely taken away. And when we're ill or grieving, our world shrinks. We tend to collapse into our own very private sensations, feelings, thoughts. And now that my vitality is coming back, I feel like I'm falling in love with some of the most basic things that I took for granted before. It's like, here's me standing, here's me walking, here's me eating. It's amazing. Look at this sun, and everything just feels new and incredible. And being an Aries native, this is actually a kind of feeling that I'm always searching for and sometimes trying to generate or manufacture. I'm not so interested in feeling like I know everything or I got everything down or, that I've secured a certain position, but I'm way interested in discovery. That feeling that this is something completely new that no one's ever known before, or at least I've never known it before. And I'm way interested in the lack of precedent, or at least the feeling of it. And and also, I just want to just add, don't worry, friends and colleagues here at Radio Kingston, I'm not contagious. What was ailing me is not transmissible. Um, And so, yeah, when I was sick and recovering, I just found my experience to be really in alignment with the Pisces to Aries transition, which is when I got really sick. And the way that, Pisces is the complete dissolution of everything. And then when we get to Aries, we try to rally and collect all of our resources and just like push through to the other side. And it's also similar to the new moon, full moon transition, where we see a growth and a culmination. And these are all very similar themes of all types of resurrection stories, um, and Easter. I also want to say, since I'm here, thanks to everyone who helped me keep work going when I couldn't, and all those who offered to bring me food even though I couldn't eat, and people who checked in on me. That was so, so helpful for my spirit. Um, And I also want to wish everyone happy National Poetry Month. April is National Poetry Month. I love this month. And so I want to start the show off with a spring poem. And this poem is written by Abigail Kirby Conklin, who has been a guest on this show. I think her episode was back during Cancer season of last year. It's a really good show. And she also just happens to be an Aries rising. And and to be honest, the poem I'm about to read wasn't my first choice. She has another spring like poem, but there were entirely too many F bombs in it. it's it's a killer poem. But also, of course, there are a lot of F bombs in that poem. This is an Aries rising. I don't think that there's any sign who really needs to use expletives like Aries. It's just, it's concise. Those words pack a wallop and you don't really need to say much after that. But the spring poem that I'm going to read from Abby's book Triage is called Seasons. And here it goes. When I have almost convinced myself that April isn't coming, I imagine holes opening up in the earth and filling them with water, watching it soak away and wondering at the cupping loam palms how they take faster than I can give. A relentless season of their own. Maybe there's been a drought in the underworld. Persephone, waiting for her season of cold stone and murk to give way and return her to the surface of the world. A deep thirst at the back of her throat for a sip of something of life. It's been argued she loved him, the god who stole her down a hole, trapped, bribed, damned her to a half life in the land of the dead with the pearl pulp of fruit seeds. But I imagine her each spring, crouched below the openings in the earth, with palms upturned in faith that spring will come. Thaw will streak the marble skin of exhausted ice overhead. Life will return, come pouring in to salve the drought of her winter, and she will open her eyes and be home. So that is Seasons by Abigail Kirby Conklin. You can find that in her poetry collection, Triage. And I think that speaks perfectly to, resurrection and that feeling of spring, especially when it's popping like it is today. Um, so we have a special Aries themed show for you today. In a little while, I'll be joined by my Aries friend, astrologer and tarot maven Elena Valdez, and we're going to talk about all things Aries with regard to this winding down of Aries season, but also bring in Mars in Cancer and Mercury in Taurus specifically. And before we get into this week's astro weather, I just want to remind you that you can share your astrological experiences, musings, ask questions, and give us show and guest recommendations by emailing us at thecosmicdispatch@gmail.com. And you can stay up to date with all of the Cosmic Dispatch content on our Instagram. And don't be shy to recommend yourself if you think you'd be a great guest or if you have a project you'd like to promote. Let us know. Mandy will be there on the other end to collect all your info and questions. And you can also sign up for our monthly newsletter, which includes monthly horoscopes, moon reports, bonus content, and information about workshops and consultation schedules. Okay, so let's take a look at the week ahead. We have a really big burst of Aries energy midweek as we have the sun and Jupiter in Aries forming a conjunction on the 11th. And this happens as the moon in Capricorn squares that conjunction on its way to perfect a third quarter square moon in Capricorn. What does all that mean? Okay, well, as Jupiter and the Sun begin a new cycle in Aries, this would be a Jupiter Kazemi. We're looking at full blown optimism and a willingness to go all in on something big, make a big sweeping change, or take bold action on something, maybe just based on instinct or faith or a combination of the two. This is daring, no holds barred energy. We not only have unbounded vision, but we're ready to act on this vision, and we have the energy to amass all of our resources to push something through or get something going. Now, at the same time, the moon in Capricorn is coming around and forming a square aspect with all of that, saying basically, not so fast. What are you basing this big action you want to take on? I think you're being foolhardy. Where's the proof that this will work? Show me your plans, etc. And the sun and Jupiter are probably not going to have any of that attitude or sentiment and see the moon's interference as a total buzzkill. When we have these conflicts in our lives, internally and externally, the temptation is to pick one or the other. For example, we might feel pressured into the false dichotomy of thinking, whoa, I have to make a decision between throwing caution to the wind or being very cautious and patient before I do anything. But the truth is, we have many more creative choices to make. There are lots more possibilities for dealing with this kind of conflict. This is where our relationship skills come into play. How can we satisfy both needs by coming up with a creative solution that takes us out of this more binary thinking? So that's usually my advice for, dealing not only with this square aspect, but squares in general. I also have to note that this is a third quarter moon. The moon is losing light. It's waning, which usually suggests a purge of some sort or a reconciliation of feelings. Maybe you pick one thing to just go full throttle on and save the other things that are exciting you for another day. And this would satisfy the Aries need to express its explosive, instinctual energy. And it would satisfy the waning Capricorn moon's need to examine other feelings or projects in a more deliberate manner. And that's not the only square we have going on at that time. On the 14th, we also have Venus freshly in the sign of Gemini, and it enters Gemini on the 11th. But on the 14th, it squares Saturn in Pisces. Venus in Gemini is a restless charmer, like a real gadabout. And this is a Venus that wants to flit from flower to flower, flirt with everyone at the party, and play games. Sure, board games, but maybe even games with your mind. And again, not in a malicious way, but just to see what happens. This is a playful, hopefully not malicious Venus and Gemini. Of course, it could be a little wicked, so watch out. Um, but Venus and Gemini is lighthearted and clever and a chaser of all that sparkles. And this could be sparkly ideas, sparkly projects, sparkly romances. Here in Gemini, Venus really wants to play and also distract, right? It's like, ooh, what's that? Ooh, what's that? Oh, look over here. And when she comes into a square with Saturn and Pisces, it's like the emo cops come in and stop the party. I'm getting like this image of like Saturn walking into this room, like dressed in black from head to toe, smoking a cigarette, and and he asks Venus, what's the point of it all? We're all just going to die. Let's meditate on the futility of all our actions and aspirations, and we'll meditate on the beauty and the blackness of it all. And then Venus goes, okay, so I guess Boggle is out of the question. Um, so Saturn is going to try to drag Venus into a more emotional place. Or it's also possible that Venus could encourage Saturn to communicate or make something out of these deep, dark, beautiful feelings. This week would actually be a great time to watch something that I've been meaning to watch for a while. It's the Nan Golden documentary, the photographer. It's called The Beauty and the Bloodshed, and it's about art and corruption, the dark side of art translated into film. Very Venus square Saturn. And this week, there could be some struggle between keeping it light and going dark. It's almost like Kurt Cobain, I think of as a very Saturn in Pisces type of figure. And Holly Golightly, who I think of as a very Venus and Gemini figure, they're trying to have a conversation, if you can imagine that. And those of you who have read or seen Truman Capote's Breakfast at Tiffany's, where the character Holly Golightly is from, this woman has a dark past that she's trying to run away from, which is why she's such a party girl and really insistent on not getting attached to anything or anybody. So we could see that sort of dynamic in play this week. But we are still exploring Aries season and some of the big astrology that started last month and how it's unfolding now. So we're going to take a short break. And when we come back, we'll talk about all of that stuff with Elena Valdez.
Hi, this is Lizzie from the Kingston Farmers Market. You can find us back inside the Old Dutch Church at 272 Wall Street every other Saturday from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Visit over 20 local vendors with fresh fruits and veggies all season long, plus local grains, meats, fish, baked goods, and specialty foods. Come enjoy the indoor marketplace with live music, hot lunch, and workshops. The market accepts SNAP and offers $2 Fresh Connect coupons. Ask about our community-supported solidarity dollars at the market booth. That's the Kingston Farmers Market inside the Old Dutch Church on Wall Street in Uptown Kingston every other Saturday from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. Find out more about our schedule, events, and programs at kingstonfarmersmarket.org or on Facebook and Instagram.
Radio Kingston.
Many voices.
Many voices.
Muchas voces.
One community.
Hi, this is Jaguar Mary X. Meet me at the threshold between one day and the next with Midnight Medicine Journey, Monday nights at midnight after Shiro's with Carmel Holt. For the past 3 years, we've been cultivating our seeds of life, and now they're blooming into the daylight hours, reaching towards full sunlight with Midday Medicine Journey, Thursdays from 1 to 3 p.m. We'll interview artists, creative people, and bring you a poetry meditation and great music from around the world. That's Midnight Medicine Journey, Monday nights at midnight, and Midday Medicine Journey, Thursdays from 1 to 3 p.m. here at Radio Kingston, AM 1490, FM 1079, and anytime at radiokingston.org.
You're listening to The Cosmic Dispatch. I'm your host, Cory Nakasue, and with me today is Elena Valdez. There you are.
Hello, my beautiful friend.
Hello, it's so good to see your face.
It's so good to see you. Thank you so much for inviting me yet again. I just love to listen to you express yourself. It's so beautiful. So thank you so much for having me here again. I appreciate you so much.
Oh, I appreciate you too. Thank you for joining me. And who else am I going to call last minute when I need an Aries to talk to?
And not just in Aries. But a Mars in Cancer, Aries.
A Mars in Cancer Aries and a Mercury in Taurus Aries, which is what we got going on in the sky right now.
Yeah,
And if we would have been recording this yesterday with the moon in Scorpio, you have that as well. Like you're like the walking, talking poster child of the sky
exactly.
right now. So like, oh, well, that worked out. So I'm thrilled to have you here. And
Thank you.
I want to
Same.
I want to have an extended conversation with you at some point.
We're overdue for sure.
Totally. Um, so could you introduce yourself to our listeners and tell us a little bit about what you do?
Yeah, thank you. So I am Elena Valdez. I am a geek of all things astrology, as I like to call myself, and also tarot. I love tarot. I previously have started a YouTube channel doing tarot readings for moms, for their little ones, for children based on their astrological sign. And I haven't been recording as much lately. I'm getting ready to revamp that YouTube channel to include more astrology readings, like monthly readings and whatnot. And I will still be infusing some of my tarot readings into that as well, because, I just can't get away from that. It's part of who I am and what I love. But I've been into astrology since I was 13. And obviously not to this extent, the basic level knowledge that a 13-year-old can, get into, meaning sun sign and all that good stuff. And I've just never left it. It's just evolved throughout the years. And I've been blessed and lucky to, have had different teachers through different ways, either through classroom, webinar sessions, reading their wonderful books and whatnot, and which is part of how I met you on one of those apprentice programs, which I don't know why you were in it, as I don't feel that you were an apprentice when you were in that group.
You
I
know
mean, we
what?
always are, right? As astrologers, it's a constant. We're always learning. And
Totally. And especially
that's the
from,
beauty of it.
the quote unquote master, Rick Levine. But
Yes.
like I knew like I didn't need the technical things that were being
Right.
shared, but this was during the pandemic,
Hmm.
and most of my astrology community in New York, because I'm a working astrologer, they're students and clients, and I'm like, I actually need some peers, so let me at least
Right.
hang out in, Rick Levine is gonna say something. Even if I know a lot of this stuff already, he's gonna say something interesting here and there. So I'm glad I stuck around because I met some really cool people who
Right.
I'm, friends with to this day, and I have my peer group. And so I'm so just thrilled that I was able to
Yeah.
maintain my my relationship with you.
Same, same. I'm so grateful for it. So yeah, I mean, that's basically where I'm at. So currently I'm just really focusing on revamping. I have my astrology clients that I still work with. I think you've gotten to know, since you and I have known each other, I'm constantly straddling the both worlds of my corporate world as along with my astrology and tarot world. And I've just come to accept that that's going to be the way it is for a little bit. Last time I spoke with you, I was determined to leave the corporate world, and it just found me again. I got pulled back into it for a little bit. And so it's a constant, which is very interesting. And I've just come to accept their report for now. They are both part of, my soul work. So
Yeah,
it's been interesting.
I don't most consulting astrologers and teaching astrologers I know, they they're doing more than astrology. Like
Mhm.
whether it's a corporate gig or they're freelancing other things. Because as astrologers, I think we're in the same boat as artists. It's an art,
Exactly. Exactly.
and it's unless your sole objective is to monetize the crap out of it and turn it into this more commodified thing, which I don't
Mhm.
even know if that would like ruin it, for some
Right.
people.
I think some people have figured out how to do that and they're doing very well with it, but I'm not one of those people.
I
So,
Yeah, I want it to stay kind of like weird and artistic
mhm,
and not like so structured and systematized. I want it to
right,
be like constantly creative. So
right.
I've decided, well, I let me just be creative with all kinds of things instead of trying to commodify every freaking thing in this world that I
Exactly.
love.
And I think intuition works its best magic when not under pressure, right? Because intuition flows, it's such a natural flowy energy that, no matter how technical of an astrologer you are, intuition always plays into it as well, because it goes in line with that creativity, right? And the more we allow it to exist in its natural state, the better I think the outcome. At
Yeah.
least for me, that's what I've discovered.
Yeah,
Yeah.
similar. I want to keep that sense of play. Like I don't want to turn everything into a hustle or a money-making
Yeah.
project, especially with the things I love. So
Right.
I'm yeah, I'm
Well,
totally.
especially you have that beautiful Leo rising with your Aries sun. Like that's so essential for you.
Oh yeah, I gotta play.
Yeah.
Everything needs to feel like play. Otherwise I get
See,
very cranky.
same thing with me. Like I want to play, but then I have that square to my sun. I have the Saturn square to my sun.
Mhm.
So right when I'm getting excited and I want to go out and play, like quit my corporate job and go just do astrology, I get Saturn's like, nope, you're gonna get back in there. And so it's a constant negotiation and just making it a non-negotiable of like, no, I need to have fun. Like literally to the point of, and this goes to anyone out there who has any type of like Chiron in their fifth house or even that heavy Saturn Sun square, because it usually inhibits that fun part, right?
Yeah, it
Yeah.
can, but it could also like really, get you to mature your
Mhm,
talents and,
mhm.
that whole story with Saturn
Right.
if you want, to go there. But I hear you, and it's just, and also this is the world we live in. We can't really untether ourselves from capitalism. It runs through absolutely everything we do. So
Right.
if we want to survive, there does have to be a money making portion.
Right.
Um, that's that to say, well, I'm going to divorce myself totally of capitalism. I think is a little delusional because you can't. So
I've
you have,
tried. I've tried it and it doesn't work.
but
Yeah.
to put it in its place, manage it so it's not like digging its little tendrils into every single part of
Right.
your life. I think it's
Yeah.
it's wise from a just living a good happy life,
Right.
place.
Hmm.
So how has your Aries season been?
Oh, is that what this is? Because it really doesn't feel like it.
It
Really
doesn't.
does not. No. So the last time you had me on, it was also Aries season. And I'm telling you what a contrast for me personally. When I came on last year to discuss the season, I was feeling vibrant. I was ready to just do it, right? Do the fun of Aries season, our astrological new year. This year, I especially as we approach this eclipse, this upcoming eclipse, I am feeling very different from last year. The energy for me is completely different. And it's been very interesting. I'm a little not nervous, but I'm very curious about what's going to happen here with this upcoming eclipse, especially being that it's in that 29th degree. But I am not feeling my usual spring into action. I mean, I can feel a lot of the energy from, we have that what Saturn in Pisces, we have Pluto in Aquarius, we have just all this energy, and we have Mars out of bounds. So we have like all this energy coming into this new moon eclipse. And I'm feeling way different than I have in previous years in terms of our astrological Aries New Year. It's not the same. It feels a little bit heavier for me. I could feel we're on that precipice of like major transformation, major, and it's happening all around me too. There's a lot of transformation happening for people, a lot of reorganizing happening, whether it's at companies, with your work, where you live. It's going to be different where these things fall in your chart, obviously, but there's a lot of that. How are you experiencing it? I'm curious.
Well, so I was very ill for the past 3 weeks, and
Okay,
I got
see?
super ill on that new moon in Aries, and I'm just
That,
now coming out of it.
you
And
see, it's like heavy. It started off
I
heavy.
and I would love, this is a perfect question for you, because I think it has something to do with Mars in Cancer. So Mars in Cancer is ruling everything that's
Hmm.
going on in Aries
Hmm.
right now.
Right.
Mars has a really, it, I don't want to, like, say any placement is bad, but it has a
Right.
tougher time in Cancer. It can't
Right.
do the big blast of vibrancy
Hmm.
as well. It's
Hmm.
murkier, it's heavier. And I had on the 26th, a couple weeks ago, I had a show with a round table, and one of the astrologers, Sasha Ravich, she was talking about Mars and Cancer, and she
Hmm.
kept going on about how Mars in Cancer is like a bloody birth. You know,
Yeah.
it's like deep, emotional, it's violent, and
Mm.
it's soupy. It's Mars in a water sign,
Hmm.
and that was most of my Aries season.
Well, you just described my whole life. So there you go.
So with you, so your experience, like living your life as someone who has Aries placements,
Yeah.
and they're toned by
Mm.
Mars and
Hmm.
Cancer, like, what kind of Aries situation, does that
Mm.
feel like?
Oh my goodness. So yeah, so I love that visual, as you were describing the way she illustrated, I could see the visual of it. Um, yeah, it's, so currently, so I think this is why also you're right, it's a bit heavier right now because it's almost, for me, I feel like that's even being more amplified than usual. But Mars and Cancer, I'm emotional all the time. Okay. Like there's no and I'm talking emotional, good or bad. So if there's a beautiful movie on and it's just, oh, it'll uplift me and the emotion is there. But if something sad happens, I will break out and cry the entire remainder of the movie. Right. Like that's the energy. Um, it is. I mean, there are so many positives to it, which I'd like to talk about because it does get a bit of a bad rep. But I
Mhm.
also want to add, it's not just that Mars is in Cancer, is that Mars is in Cancer and also out of bounds. And
Mm,
so already Mars is not comfortable in Cancer. And then you add that additional layer of not being fully itself or wanting to be uncharacteristically more of itself. Or for me, how I've experienced it is whatever planet you usually, for example, natally, whatever planet you usually have that's out of bounds, there's usually a disdain for the natural characteristic of that planet. So, for example, I natally have Mars out of bounds. So it's like a double everything, right? So for me, I'll give you an example of what I mean by that. So Mars is all things powerful, protective, masculine, right? It's a masculine sign. Well, I have a natural aversion to things that are a little too masculine. And I'm not talking gender here. I'm talking the energy of masculinity. So like, for example, going to the gym and hearing, that testosterone weightlifting and, I cannot do it. I can't. I will this is why I go to a women's only gym. Not that that's any better because again, I'm talking energy,
mhm.
right? So, but so taking that onto the collective, right? You will notice that there's there are these natural aversions to what the characteristic of that planet brings, right? So depending on where this is hitting you in your chart as well. So just paying attention to that, maybe something that wasn't necessarily something that would afflict you or annoy you, trigger you in any way, all of a sudden it's triggering you. So if you think of where is Mars in Cancer hitting you currently, what house is that? And what themes of that house that wouldn't typically trigger you are all of a sudden triggering you, right? So that's something that I can speak of having it natally and having both of the influences. But outside of that, so I'm speaking of that in terms of the collective, what we're feeling, right? Mars in Cancer is also, you know, Cancer is emotional. Cancer wants to protect its home, and you know, Mars is uncomfortable and doesn't know how what kind of force to use to protect that home, if you will. So we're seeing that on the collective, and we're feeling that. But also is ruled for all of us who are ruled by Mars, right? Aries, Scorpios.
Yeah, it's just, yeah, it's so much like darker and damper. And and I know we have Jupiter in Aries right now. Jupiter's slow moving, but it's been kind of close to the sun. It hasn't, you know, we're getting the Kazemi this week, but leading up to it, it's under the beams of the sun, which means we're not even that big Jupiter in Aries. We think it's going to be like, okay, blast off, like let's just go for it. There's something a little muted about it because it's hiding underneath the beams of the sun and can't fully express its full like Jupiterian Aries thing. And
Yeah.
so I actually think and I'm looking at this solar eclipse in Aries coming up next week as well, and just kind of going, that that looks edgy. That
It
looks
does.
yeah.
And you know, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, go ahead. Were you gonna say something?
I'm sort of feeling this energy, this eclipse that's coming up, as it's almost like we have this balloon, right? And this balloon, we're blowing air into this balloon, we're expanding this balloon. And it started with, even though it was pre-Aries season, it started with Saturn moving into it started with Saturn moving into Pisces. We're blowing the balloon. Then Pluto is moved into Aquarius during Aries season. We're blowing the balloon. Mars is out of bounds towards the end, the last month. We're blowing that balloon. And this balloon is just growing and growing. And we get to the 29th degree of Aries, right? And all these contents have been blowing up this balloon, right? So we're holding all this energy, all this stuff that's coming up, right? Depending on where those big major planets are hitting us, you know, on our chart, we're inflating this balloon. Here comes 29 degrees, and then here comes the needle that's going to pop it, which the needle being Pluto, that's squaring that eclipse, and how we respond, you know, to the contents, or how those contents move into the Taurian tangible energy that comes right after that, is going to depend on what side of Pluto are we on. Are we on the power side of, like, do we feel powerful or powerless? You know, overpowered or empowered, right? And that's like huge transformation. And so it's like, yeah, these contents of energy that were just the balloons, like, so I think, I know that sounds dramatic, but I can't, you know, that's how I'm seeing this. And then the ramification, the tangible ramifications are going to follow that, because we're moving this energy into the tangible, the fixed sign of Taurus, right? The fixed tangibility, where we'll be able to see it visually and tangible and feel it.
Yeah, and that that eclipse coming up next week is square to Pluto in
Pluto,
Aquarius.
exactly.
So that's another, like, I'm like, ooh.
Right. And that's what I see as the needle that's going to pop the balloon.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. So
But
we're
yeah,
going to
it's
talk more.
heavy.
Yeah, it's heavy. We're going to talk more about this and some other Aries topics when we come back.
Okay.
What does community radio mean to you?
Community radio is what enables the community to feel a part of itself. Community is the essence of how we value how we live, and the community radio station makes it all happen.
Radio Kingston.
Many voices, one community.
Hi, I'm Mary from Place Corps.
And I'm Connor. I'm a fellow from Place Corps. If you're graduating from high school and wondering what's next, we have a gap year program.
The Place Corps Kingston Fellowship is a 10-month post-high school fellowship for Kingston youth ages 18 to 21 who want real-life adventure and opportunity.
From August to May, you'll be active around Kingston, engaging in conversations on finance and social justice as part of entrepreneurial training, making homemade meals together, farming around the city, and helping to construct community projects.
It's a rigorous program of community-based learning where fellows will learn practical, professional, and personal skills so that they are set up to succeed in the next chapter of their lives.
Place Corps has really opened up a world of possibilities for me.
This program is open to all Kingston residents ages 18 to 21, and the application deadline is April 15th.
To get more information or apply, go to placecorps.org.
Hi, I'm Teresa Whitman from I Want What She Has. Every Monday afternoon from 1 to 3, we're amplifying women's voices.
Women had power through talk.
And their stories.
My curiosity outweighs any fear.
Highlighting how women are living life on their own terms.
I don't want to follow the rules anymore. I want to do what I want to do that feels good.
And breaking free from patriarchal structures.
But misbehaving is really just stepping outside the confines of society.
Going deep into systems change.
Sure, astrology can be revolutionary if it's obstructive to capitalism because you don't go to work because it's a full moon or whatever, you know.
And how we take care of ourselves and each other. That's I Want What She Has, your weekly antidote to the patriarchy. Monday afternoons from 1 to 3 here on Radio Kingston, AM 1490, FM 1079, or anytime on radiokingston.org.
You're listening to The Cosmic Dispatch. I'm your host, Cory Nakasue, and with me today is astrologer, among other things, Elena Valdez. And I was saying she's the walking, talking poster child for the energies that we have in the sky right now. But since today is Easter, and I did a little talk about resurrection at the top of the show, I'm wondering, Elena, do you have any thoughts or feelings about the themes of resurrection, like as it applies to Aries? You know, have you ever like maybe done this very Aries thing of like purposefully ending something so that you could get that feeling of I'm coming back to life, like that rush of a new beginning?
A few times, actually. And, you know, I like to say that I've lived about 5 to 6 lives within this lifetime. And it usually stems from that energy of knowing in my heart and soul, just intuitively feeling when something is done or something has lost its essence, if you will, or no one is benefiting any longer from whatever that is that needs to be transmuted into something new. So yeah, I've done it many times, for slightly different reasons, because I do have, you know, where, you know, I think it's easier to have that zest for life that Aries tends to have, but because I have that square to Saturn, my reasons have been sort of dampened by that a little bit. Like the reasons that they're usually a bit more dramatic, right? Like not just moving into a new direction because I want to start a new energy. It's more like I have to end this in order to survive it and thrive, if you will. But yes, absolutely. I think I also have, you know, that Mars and Cancer is in my 8th house. So I naturally live the theme of rebirth. So it's a constant, you know, and that's my ruler, Mars, Aries, in the 8th house. And so for me, there have been many instances where I've been forced into situations that I've had to leave the past to start over, literally becoming a different person, even taking on a new identity, not literally like changing my name or anything. Well, actually, I kind of did once, but you know, I have definitely, and you know, there's always that initial grief that comes with it, whether it's by choice or fun, or not for fun, but for like that zest of life, or by force. There's always that initial grief and mourning that needs to happen. And I think sometimes that's the difficult part in rebirth and resurrection, right? Making that transition and surrendering, if you will, because I think that's a big piece of that, is surrendering, being willing to let go of what was, whether it was great or not great, because we mourn that which is even bad for us, right? Like even though we know.
Yeah.
So yeah, I feel like for me, rebirth and resurrection have been just another theme of my blueprint, my astrological blueprint, if you will. And I've learned to be comfortable with it. Doesn't mean that I don't kick and scream and cry in the process of it. But, you know, once I'm on the other side, I like literally not only forget like the previous life, but literally I forget names of people that were in that life. It's no joke. I was just having lunch the other day with my friend, and I'm like, what's her name? She's like, you mean your ex-fiance? I'm like, I can't think of the name. like literally, that's how I'm able to fully resurrect into a new life.
Well, that's just like so Aries. Because one of the things I find in like parallel to that is like whatever's happening right now, like that's what is. I don't really look into the future, and I forget about what happened in the past. So like I was sick the past few weeks. There were times that I'm like this is it. I am going to be sick forever. I need to start like making plans for a
Oh
new
my God.
life, and how, because like I
Yes.
don't get like my Capricorn friends that, you know what, things will change.
Right.
Give it time, and like time, I don't even like like
Yes.
what is happening now is my whole world. And then
Yes.
conversely, when things are great, I'm like, this is how it's gonna be forever.
Right.
Because that's what's happening now.
This is resonating so
Yeah.
much for me right now. You have no idea, because and that's the beauty of Aries, right? That we are able to be present. And with that, that means that we're also not holding on to grudges and resentment. And I think that's something that is very beautiful and not often talked about the Aries energy. You know, it's always our impatience and temper and this and that. But the other side of Aries is that we will easily forgive you and move on. And that's because we don't have time. We're in the present. We're not in the past, and we're not in the future. And you know, it's just, that's the way it is. And even, I don't know, tell me if this is something that you experience even when planning. So this happens with my girlfriend all the time, where we'll get up and it's time for breakfast. I'm focused on breakfast. I'm just like thinking of the avocado I'm going to put on my scrambled eggs. And I'm just like really thinking about it. She's like, so what do you want to do for dinner? And what do you want to do later? And what do you do? And I'm like, oh, no, I can't. That's stressing. And I start to stress out. Does that happen to you? I'm just curious.
My whole life, I've never looked that far in the future. Like maybe I can look ahead a week or so, but like the whole planning thing and like holding that vision and sticking to it, like there wasn't like something I wanted to be when I grow up. I didn't have a 5-year plan. It was like, well, if I just do what I love in the moment and fully commit, all of these present moments hopefully will add up to something good and take me to a place that I want to be. But I can't invest in a future vision, and I can't really invest in the past unless, and this might be a commonality too, it's an emotion. That's a Scorpio moon thing. Scorpio is ruled by Mars, so it's a Mars issue. Um, I might not remember the name of the person like you, but I'll know that I'll remember that I was wronged.
You remember the feeling,
I'll remember
how
and I'll
that person
hold
made
it
you
on.
feel. Yeah.
I'll hold on to it.
Yeah.
And so that takes a lot. But, you know, all other things, it's like, oh yeah, I'm just here, ready to go and do what I'm doing.
And that is so beautiful. And it complements your Leo rising too.
I hope so.
Yeah. That's, being in the present and loving and enjoying and creating for the sake of creating, not because you have to.
Or because I have a goal that I need
Exactly.
to, I'm going to sacrifice and go through hell right now because of this goal 10 years off in the future. It makes no sense to me. It's
Right.
like, am I feeling awesome now?
Right.
Okay.
I love it.
Well, and also another Aries thing, and we've talked about this before. Like both of us don't like to drive on the highway or freeway. And we were like, what's up with that? Like Aries should like love jumping in the car
We
and
should
just
love a
like,
speed.
right, flooring the gas pedal. And I've thought about this, and this is what I've come up with. I prefer the like side streets because I get to stop, and then I get to let's make a right, and then I can stop and make a left. I think Aries really needs to stop. And when I'm just like on the highway, I'm like something feels wrong in my body. It's like I really need to stop. And I
Yeah.
don't know if that that resonates. I don't want to sustain. Like if
Yeah.
I was a musician, I wouldn't want to like play long notes on the horn. I would want to play drums because like I get to like hit it and then it stops and I can hit it again in a different way. And and that's the nature of
My
Aries.
goodness.
Keep changing direction, but to like just
Yeah.
go straight for a long time, I get very unnerved.
You know what that makes me think of? I always get these visuals when I'm talking to you, right? So I'm thinking of that child, which, represents, the I am, the first house, the child of the zodiac, and that baby that's like going, 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 and they want to stop and see, hey, what's going on over here? Hey, what's going on over here? And also with that, though, going, 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 and then drops and takes a nap out of nowhere.
Yes.
just out of nowhere. It was just having a tantrum, was just playing with his or her friends and just drops and takes a nap. Like, what?
And that's like people, another thing that people associate with Aries is like, oh, go, go, go. It's like, no, it's go, stop, go, stop.
Right.
Because when they go from 0 to 100. They like max it
Exactly.
out. And so
Exactly.
you have to, it's a firework. It's bright and then it's gone.
And I think also if you think about that, we have the child archetype, right? But then if you think about the soldier archetype of Aries, right? The soldier needs to stop and assess. We need to stop and assess what's going on, what's our background, what car is next to us, where are we, what's going on, And I think you can't do that on a freeway or a highway because you're just going. You can't just, you have to zoom in and zoom out of. Yeah, so that's really funny. That's actually really, I'm going to think about that more now that when I get on the road and see. And I also enjoy side streets though, because the things that you didn't even know exist, neighborhoods that you didn't even know exist, you get to see and you get to find like new, like hole in the wall restaurants or like, I love that too. And that's usually the case for me. I always find random, cool, new places to explore because I am on side streets.
And then you can stop and change your mind and stop and go back. When you're just
Exactly.
on that highway, you're stuck actually.
You're not free.
on that
You're
path.
not, there's no freedom on that.
Yeah.
Because you're being told how long well, that's what it is. We're just control freaks, Cory. That's the bottom line here.
It bothers me. It just feels wrong in my body.
That is so fascinating. I
have
love it.
I want to flesh out just a little bit more of your like personal experience in relationship to what's going on up there in the sky. So Mercury is pretty newly in Taurus. What is it like to have an Aries sun that's like there and present, let's do it now, and Mercury going, oh, hold on, in Taurus?
It's so interesting. I'm constantly being interrupted in the middle of a sentence or a conversation or dialogue that I'm having with someone. And that's because of my mode of speaking. It's very like my communication style. It's like I take the information and I like think about it and I like methodically think, you know, I want to make sure that everything I'm saying matters. It's important. There's a reason for it. And sometimes that means long pauses. So people just assume I'm done speaking, right? And they just continually interrupt me. And I find myself off, you know, saying, oh, I'm not done. Oh, I thought you were done. There was a pause. So I think it can be, it's interesting. I sometimes feel like, you know, my mind just processes slowly the information. I take my time also when it comes to learning information. I can be slower than the typical person, but once I learn it well, and it has roots, whatever it is that I learn. But it takes me a while. So, you know, I have to repeat lectures and lessons before I can truly understand it. I have to rewrite whatever I'm listening to. I have to write it a few times to really learn and absorb the information. And so it's a slower way of doing things. I move slower. I drive slowly. You know, even when I'm on the freeway, when I'm forced to get on the highway, like I'm on the far right lane, driving super slow. And I don't like to be rushed, which is different from that Aries energy. You know, and so for me, if I'm being rushed, if I feel any Aries energy from the external, I get in my stubborn Taurus Mercury, and I just stop moving. And it's like if I'm running a little late and I'm being rushed, I will stop getting ready, and I'll make it even more late because I feel anxiety, which is so different from Aries, because Aries is go, 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 right?
Mm-hmm. Oh,
So
no. Yeah.
yeah,
Totally.
so it's a very slow moving, and sometimes also it makes me very sensitive, what I've come to accept also in terms of like sounds and noise. But sometimes it's because there is speed energy in the sounds and noise. And so I'm very sensitive to that. So you'll notice during this time frame, people are sensitive to you speaking too loudly, too quickly, driving to, you know, you'll see a bit more slow pokes on the road. It's probably me.
That's such a good point, because, you know, Mercury is going to be in Taurus for a long time, because we also have a retrograde coming up.
Trains are going to be late. You know, it's like planes are going to be late. It's like everything.
Well, that's going to make for an interesting Taurus season, which also happens next week.
But I do want to say, with that note of things being slow, just remembering the reason things are slow is because the maintenance of those things are being done methodically. So with lots of thought, because that's Taurus, right? It's about the value of that thing. So I just want to add that. So that when people are being impatient, they get that.
Well, there you have it, everybody. There's a little primer for the week ahead, kind of based on Elena's personal astrology. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me. As always, time flies when I come visit.
Yeah, I hope to visit you actually in person soon.
Yes.
And we're going to have all of Elena's information up in our show notes and in the archive if you want to check out some of her work. And until then, I'll see you next week, and take care and take it easy, everybody.
Thank you, Cory.
Thank you.
Bye.